Alright, this video is long overdue. This video is long overdue. This is the murder on the Orient Express plot holes and things I don't like, things that don't make sense, and all that shit. I was gonna do this differently, like well edited out and everything, but didn't have time. Okay, why the fuck can I not scroll? Okay. The egg scene in the beginning is to buy time for the guy to search the office, and not because 𝘚𝘵𝘴 really wants the guy's eggs to be perfect, his eggs to be perfect. He's just buying time for the guy to search the police guard's office, and that's why he's using it as an excuse, because he's in the room with him while he's making the eggs. The cons about this movie is everything takes place before they even get on the train. Nothing that happens on the train besides the killing drives the point forward. All of the plot and everything sits before the train. So, it should have been just a random killing. That would have been a lot better. Or something that would have drove the plot forward while they were on the train. That doesn't happen. All the important shit takes place before they even get on the train. I'm about to shit all over this movie, so I'll focus on the good things about it now. This is arguably a top 25 movie of all time for yours truly. I like the way it makes the feel, as Book says, the gentle rocking and all that shit, mysterious ambience. The mystery is good, even though it's predictable. Even though, yeah, the ending's kind of shitty, I can appreciate the aha moments this movie has. The best parts are before they even get on the train, when they're in the city, and Poirot is sniffing some 1930s bread. I'm not even joking there, it's good shit, and it's nice to peek into the not shown as much simplistic beauty of olden times. All these movies that take place in the 30s and 40s, they never just go into a random bakery or some shit and all that, time accurate and all that stuff. They just kind of gloss right over that. I want to see that stuff. It's good shit, and it's nice to peek into the not shown I already said that. Book, Ratchet, and the Count are very good characters. I wish Depp was one of the passengers instead of the killer, but whatever. I can believe Ratchet as a character being into shady art dealings, but child murder doesn't seem like something he'd be into. Doesn't seem he has he seems too smug and to be a child murderer. I can see him being a con man and doing rip-off art deals, but child murder sounds kind of not to his character. Poirot's accent changes like 4 times in the movie. I don't like how it does that. Do you know how much high society first class train food I'd eat if I was in the 30s on a train like that? I'd do nothing but eat that entire time. This is based on all the shit I'm saying and all the shit I'm going to say is based on the 2017 movie and not the book or the original movie. Okay, so here's where it gets into it. Why are Poirot and Book friends in the first place? They have nothing in common. They're only friends to drive the point, because there's no plot unless they're friends, because Poirot can't get on the train without Book. But why are Book and Poirot friends in the first place? They have nothing in common. They don't seem like they'd like each other. Just their personalities don't clash. It only had to happen for the plot purposes. I don't buy it. I don't buy their friendship. Also, it's astronomical that in the 30s, before travel was as fast and easy, that Book and Poirot are in the same place at the exact same time for him to even get a free ticket onto the express. Nothing to do with, I've already said this, and why the eggs aren't even in the first place, because it was to search the room, but the eggs are ridiculously uneven to the human eye. that it wouldn't even... A ruler is completely necessary in that first scene, because you'd know instantly they weren't the same size. I can't breathe for some reason. Mr. Harris not boarding, because Mr. Harris is the one who didn't show up, so Mr. Harris not boarding when every passenger is essential to the plan. So I guess Mr. Harris was the one passenger who's not essential to the plan. I guess they could have made it so he didn't show up as to not interfere. The group of people could have made it so his ticket got lost, or he slept in, or whatever. He missed the train for a certain reason. But that subtly suggests that they murdered or delayed Harris so he didn't interfere with killing Johnny Depp. So I don't buy the whole Mr. Harris just not coming up. Since every passenger is essential to the plan and already predetermined, why would there be just a random passenger? Poirot is even allowed being on the train in the first place. If they were serious, they would have bought every single ticket and just invited trusted family or something. Train is always sold out. Train is sold out, but not for Poirot, apparently. I can't fucking talk, or can't think, I can barely breathe. I don't know what the hell's happening. Staff on the train never becomes accused, questioned, or any screen time at all, despite being in the background of most scenes, even when some of the passengers and even the main suspect at one point, McQueen, supposed alibis rely on members of the staff, but the staff are never questioned in anything. McQueen and Arbuthnot in the bar, or the lady only character trait is to say dark Bible references with the aspirin. That lady whose only character trait is to say the dark Bible references with the aspirin. She doesn't need to exist. Her character's only to do that sad Bible traits shit. She didn't have to be a character. She's my least favorite character. Yes, but the staff never becomes accused once. Okay, Ratchet does not speak French, as said by McQueen, and the lady in Ratchet's room says go away in French, trying to be Ratchet, mimicking him. And I know they're all in on it, but you're not supposed to know that at that point, so that makes no sense that the conductor would buy that. This should send immediately red flags to Poirot. It doesn't somehow, seeing as how he's right next door and hears the not French-speaking Ratchet speak French, or so he thinks. If he really is the greatest detective ever, he would have caught this. Why would Daisy Ridley speak to the said detective, best detective in the world, when she's planning to be a murderer? This is before they even get on the train, where Poirot says she's a seamstress and all that shit. So I don't know why I should even do that in the first place. If she recognizes Poirot as the greatest detective in the world, why would she even talk to him when she's planning on killing a man just hours later? Even if she didn't think he'd come back to him. She's about to be an accomplice for murder at the least. She shouldn't even look in this man's direction. Even if you don't think he'll be on your train, not only does she talk to him, which is wrong, she gives him her name. She gives him her name, the greatest detective in the world, and she's about to kill someone. They said they were going to take him out to the police, which is obviously a lie. And I don't know why they snuck that in. So, yeah. Why does Poirot know this random chef in Europe, and why can't he just lurk into the kitchen? Also, Book comes in there with a woman. This is where before they're even on the train. Why does Poirot know this random chef in Europe, and why can't he just lurk in the kitchen? Also, Book comes in here with the woman and asks if a chef, if he can find a room. Why would he ask a chef who can find a room? The chef is not the hotel person. And this movie never happens if Book and Poirot don't run into each other right there. They would have never let Poirot on unless Book did not insist. and did not own the train his uncle did. So Poirot bails out Bouc based on his life for drugs and buying hookers, which seems completely out of character for the guy who's all about justice, quote-unquote, and would rather let a murderer kill him than pull strings to make up a story, as I'm sure he's done with the whole Bouc hooker situation. So Poirot's a hypocrite for helping Bouc with his hookers and not wanting to lie and would rather get killed. I understand that he's the Count and he's pretty much untouchable, but he just kicked 3 people in the face prior to getting on the train, and there's no consequences for that at all. Defoe only books his ticket 2 days before takeoff. That is cutting it extremely close, seeing as how the whole plan goes down the shitter unless everyone is present. Also, this is the most pretentious train in Europe, or prestigious. This is the most prestigious train in Europe, and I refuse to believe tickets aren't immediately sold out within the first few days/hours. Why is everyone so welcoming of Poirot? Everyone already knows everyone on the train's there, so there's no reason to get acquainted with the outsiders, even Poirot, staff, chefs, and others, i.e. So as soon as Poirot gets on the train, everyone immediately goes up to talk to Poirot, I guess to make him trust him, but it just doesn't make any sense, seeing as how they're there to kill someone. Why is everyone so well? I already said that everyone should be hours early at the latest. Everyone is boarding the train with like 5 minutes to spare or to departure. Again, doesn't make any sense, seeing as how if the train leaves early or something, you're screwed and the entire plan is done. I need to take some aspirin, good lord. Why does Ratchet want his dictaphone? It's a weird thing to say, we never see it, and it doesn't have any relevance to the plot, so it's a weird thing for him to say he wants his dictaphone. He says dogs on the table are the most disgusting thing he's ever seen in his life, but he's already killed a child, and I guess killing a child isn't as bad as seeing dogs on the table. Why would they send Ratchet letters? Why would they try to tip him off at all? This whole thing is supposed to be secret, and no one knows it's going to happen, but they're giving him these letters, and I guess it's because he knows he's trapped, that sort of thing. He knows he's about to get hunted down. They want him to be scared and concerned in his final hours, but it's still weird that they would tip him off to that. Why would Mrs. Hubbard go and talk to this person who killed their granddaughter? He said like 4 words. So Mrs. Hubbard talks to Ratchet in the hallway, and why would you even talk to him at all, the guy who killed your granddaughter? He said, even though this is just a cover story, obviously she didn't love him if she was her first husband, and that's when she says he had the first face like a turnip, but she loved that turnip. Obviously she didn't, since it's her first husband, even though that's just a cover story. So Poirot is so anal about his mustache being perfect at all times, despite it being not perfect at pretty much every time throughout this movie, even though they're in a movie and they should be doing makeup and all that shit between takes, even when he's not in a situation. This is the only time we see him with the mustache cover thing on, and that's when. This was originally supposed to be, I'd show you what I was talking about as I said it. I feel like I'm about to pass out. I can't talk, I can't hear myself, I don't know what the hell is going on. I feel like I'm out of breath constantly. I don't know what, I can't do anything. So Poirot only uses that mustache thing once the entire time. The bitchy Bible lady says sin does not agree with me, even though she's about to murder a man. Talk about hypocrite. And she screams while she does. She's the only person who screams while she's stabbing Cassetti, and I'm sure that would have tipped someone off. I don't know how Poirot doesn't hear her scream, because she screams when she sticks the knife into him. It almost certainly is waking up someone who isn't in on it, Did you notice I hate this character? She does nothing for the story, like Defoe and Marquez. Even though you are about to murder a man, pretty sure God frowns on revenge killing, and she's so judgmental and bitchy, like most Christians. But seriously, this woman she's the one who got her killed because she was drunk, falling asleep, and that's not even a really important thing. She didn't have to be here in the first place, and then she has to go act all high and mighty, and just a total bitch. I hate characters that say the same thing over and over again, just worded differently. It happens more than you think. And as I've said, she says the same thing about, oh, we're going to fall like Lucifer. Or, like Lucifer, we're going to fall. She says that same shit over and over again. It's always some depressing Bible quote, and it could be said the same time every time and still mean the same thing. None of her lines do anything for the plot. Defoe's 1930s racism here is a big deal for Daisy Ridley, but would most likely be brushed off given the time. For fuck's sake, the guy is from Austria, and it's like 10 years away from Nazi Germany. It isn't a surprise. I hate when TVs and movie does this, even when shit is set in the past. There's always going to be some conscientious objector, and I highly doubt it would happen. These people would be minding their business back then. It doesn't, just because it's a Hollywood movie made now, they don't have to be all woke and stupid about it. I don't want to sound like I'm defending Defoe's character, but it's not like he's saying let's kill them or kick them off the train or lynch them. He's asking to change his seat, and he's been willingly seated there. He's been willingly seated. It's not like he's yelling at the guy who's sitting across from him. He's sitting there willingly, and he's dealing with it. So I don't know what the big problem is. If Ratchet is so hell-bent on getting protection from Poirot, why not make up an actual believable story that makes him an actual victim, even though Poirot would say, I don't like your face, and not protect him anyway, which is a bitch move to do. I don't know why he did that. What if his mother and girlfriend were killed and Poirot still says, I don't like your face, is a reason to not help him find the killer? Getting these letters, they know I'm on the train, and Poirot still doesn't protect him? If Cassetti shows Poirot the letters, and Poirot still didn't protect him because of the face, that's just denying evidence. Also, the first thing he says to Poirot is, you're a strange, peculiar man. So the first thing he says to Poirot is that he's strange and peculiar, and this is the guy he's going to beg for protection. That's a bad way to start. He says, Poirot, I detect criminals, I do not protect criminals. But he literally does by saying nothing at the end and choosing all the murderers to go freely. So Poirot's the biggest hypocrite ever, besides the Bible chick. Poirot love story is pointless. He only says anything about Catherine like 3 times max, and it doesn't happen. It has zero change on the plot. The Catherine, the Bible lady, could have been cut out completely, and you could have used that time for something else that was more productive. The best shot in the movie is when it's the shot from the ceiling pointing down, and it's when they find Cassetti's door and they open it. I really like that style. That's something I will say about this. You see the Count in the dining hall when Poirot says that Ratchet has died, which seems very unlikely and out of character, since he's always by Alina's side. She is nowhere to be seen there. I think he was only included in the scene so that you would suspect he's a suspect. Based that he very briefly becomes one, but he would not be seated in the front row in the dining room for any other reason without Alina. For any other reason. This is bad writing on the writer's part. It's some Vinnie Roo writing. McQueen does such a horrible job of keeping kayfabe and tries to turn it on Marquez for seemingly no reason at all, and acts all shady throughout the entire thing, that I'm honestly surprised the others didn't team up on him to try to pin it on McQueen. The others could have pinned it on McQueen and they all could have gone free, and Poirot would have bought it. McQueen does everything wrong and they really should have pinned it on him, and he was the main suspect for the largest amount of time. McQueen knows exactly to the day that he has been employed by Ratchet, but can't keep his story straight over very less hard questions. He also lies his ass off very casually and literally to Poirot's face when he says, "Were you fond of Ratchet?" And Poirot somehow Poirot somehow seems this is not yet essential to the plot. "Were you fond of Ratchet?" Poirot says hi. So Poirot lets McQueen off scot-free, their first interaction. And this idiot McQueen points the finger at Marquez and on the way out and gets himself as a suspect. Okay, so the doors were locked, so the staff is innocent, but still, that staff thing I said still holds true. Much would have been better if the actual Lindbergh case or another made-up case made up entirely would have been a better fit. I just didn't really buy the Armstrong case as reason enough due to legal issues. The Lindbergh case probably wasn't mentioned. Also, Charles Lindbergh 100% killed his daughter, probably by accident, and had it covered up. I just want to say that right now. Just look at the dude's face. He looks evil. That's all the evidence I need. I'm sure it was an accident or something. She fell down the stairs, but he couldn't have the get out, so he probably buried her in the basement or something. Which is really creepy when you think about it. That's like the kind of shit horror stories are made off of. Why? Okay, I don't know why Armstrong sends a letter to Poirot just to off himself before he even has time to read it and respond to it. Armstrong fumbled the bag here. There was a trial and everything before that, so either he waited very long to send the letter before he offed himself, or he did it before the trial for the wrong person began. Either way, Poirot not getting the letter in time is some bullshit. Why does Mrs. Hubbard say the murderer was in their room last night? To Poirot, it just confuses things with the other passenger and makes Poirot most suspicious, which is not what you want to do to the best detective in the world. Poirot says to Hubbard, "Are you certain it was a man?" And she says in a non-definitive and kind of bullshit answer that he immediately accepts as the truth. She's like, "I know when a man's in my cabin," and Poirot just immediately accepts that and never questions it further, and that's the kind of proof he has on. Poirot revealed the kidnapping to all of the passengers despite it having no upside for them, and he's letting the murder suspects know that he's in on it. He isn't no in on it. He's giving privileged information for no reason. Poirot tells Even Ratchet is 𝘚𝘵𝘴 based on a burnt note and a hunch that maybe the words and letters were in the right order. That will not hold up in court, seeing as how you destroy the evidence and it's your word versus his type situation. Alas, if everyone knows what 𝘚𝘵𝘴 is or looks like and he hasn't been captured yet. The only evidence he has to go to is the burnt note that doesn't exist anymore. It's a his word versus anyone scenario, and this is circumstantial but best evidence besides, and this is the only evidence that drives the point forward, so it's bullshit how all that happened. "How did you know Ratchet was 𝘚𝘵𝘴?" the judge asks. "It was on a burnt piece of paper that I don't have anymore." "Yeah, I'm sure it was." Masterson says he only wants to do what he wants but doesn't do anything besides be on the train and be employed by the shitty boss that he hates. Granted, he will kill him, but still, it seems like he'd want to spend his last weeks or whatever, months, not on a train for a few weeks, and he'd do something else. Marquez says Masterson saw him sleep all night until morning, despite Masterson, 1, doesn't have his eyes open when he's sleeping. Masterson was getting coffee for Ratchet while he was sleeping, so hypothetically Marquez could have sneaked off alone and carried out the deed in return. So Marquez could have been the actual killer. If they should have done a clue-like ending where there was like 5 different endings. That would have been a lot better, and they should have been subtle clues, differences throughout that were scenes put in for different endings, and it would have been a lot better. They should have done that in Clue, but they left all the stuff the same in Clue. It doesn't work. McQueen would have been a duo with Michelle, Marquez, and McQueen are the most likely trio to commit the crime. So it could have been McQueen and Marquez, or Marquez, McQueen, and Michelle. Defoe says "sure" in the wrong way almost immediately when he first gets on the train and questioned by Poirot, but Poirot doesn't immediately call him out for it. He only calls him out for it much, much later when the plot demands it. The evil nun opens the door and doesn't immediately close it like any normal person would do. The evil nun girl, Bible girl, she opens Ratchet's door and doesn't immediately close it like anyone else. She keeps it open for like 10 seconds, long enough for him to pull a gun on her, and she still doesn't close the door yet and leave. She also doesn't tell anyone about this for some reason. So I think she's making it up, because she's lying, and she's the evil Bible girl. Keeps it open long enough for the possible fake scenario of Ratchet pulling the gun happens to keep it on way too long. We have no confirmation that Ratchet pulling the gun was real or if the nun was lying. I'm just going to say again, fuck Daisy Ridley and the evil nun. They're the worst two characters in this movie. Princess Dragomirov has a giant black head in the middle of her forehead that pisses me off because no one pops it the entire time. Everybody immediately spills their involvement with conceding and similarities. You would think they would all have the I say nothing, see nothing mentality and have never heard of Ratchet Cassetti plan, but it's because it's what ends up screwing them over in the end, so they should all just plead the fifth there, instead of doing it shittily like Daisy Ridley tried to do. I would be sitting here way too long to dive into all the shit wrong with McQueen and his thinking and the whole scene when he tries to escape, so I'm not even going to do it. Our birth not the colored doctor, as McQueen says, is the only smart person here denying he knows John Armstrong, and has the best interview with Poirot in terms of lying convincingly. When he gets interviewed by Poirot and denies knowing John Armstrong, that's the best interview in the entire movie as far as trickery. It even tricked me the first time I saw it, and it's by far the best interview. He has the best interview. He ruins the credibility. He ruins his credibility to vouch for Bitch Mary, which somehow works and is accepted by Poirot. He just accepts his vouching for her and doesn't ever pursue Mary again after that, which is some bullshit. Movie goes by way too fast. Should have been slower paced and methodical, and clue finding and interviews, backstory, etc. 1 hour and 40 minutes should have been like 2.5 hours. Would have been a good movie, way better movie. Could have timed it out better, had more little shit. McQueen gets bailed out by the doctor by stabbing Hubbard to prove, quote-unquote, McQueen is not the killer, which McQueen would never do for anyone else, so they really bailed out McQueen on that one. They should have pinned it on McQueen. He was right there. The guy was too busy drinking and spilling booze during his only role, and it directly led to him being chased and a suspect. It's all on McQueen for getting found out. McQueen getting found out was all on him, and no one else in the movie gets as much suspicion as him, nearly. So they should have pinned it on McQueen. That's what they should have done. McQueen, Marquez, Michelle, and Defoe are the ones who could have been in on it, and they could have been the actual killers if they were going to go a logical way. Poirot doesn't immediately notice the grease spot is an altered letter. The first I got cut off, so I'm doing it part 2 for Murder of the Orient Sprint. Murder, I can't talk. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. I feel like I'm about to die. What the fuck? The Murder of the Orient, nope, Murder on the Orient, Murder on the Orient Express. Murder on the Orient Express, plot holes and things I don't like. This is part 2. Cut off last time. Different camera, better quality sound. The Countess has the barbiturate, but it never comes up again, even though he's used it so much on people. Book shows up out of nowhere to save Poirot at the end. Even though Book is nowhere near Poirot, and should be many minutes away. When Poirot says the only your God and Hercule Poirot only will know while they're seated and the other isn't in sight. Mere seconds later, all passengers are deleted. Also, where are the chefs and other staff? Are they still on the train? Who's on the train with them? When Poirot says only your guy and Poirot, only half of the killers are seated. And in the very next shot, seconds later, they're all magically there sitting. So that's just bad camera work. That's like Wolf of Wall Street bad, and that movie is notorious for being shitty when it comes to the editing. Princess Broomhoff signed Linda Arden picture on the train with her. She brings it with her on the train. Damning evidence. She brings it with her on the train for any detective to look at and link to her like he does. Should have been a clue ending, I've already said that. The knocks on Ratchet's door would have woke Poirot. The nun screams as she stabs. I've already been over that in the first one. It's so stupid how she screams when she stabs. And it never gets brought up, because even though everyone would have heard that, they got fingerprints on everything, and fingerprints were being used since the 20s. So fingerprints were very real in the late 30s for homicide cases. Fingerprints were on everything in that room. No one wiped anything off. Very sloppy cleanup job for something that was so methodically thought out, even though it wasn't, because it was a terrible plan. I don't know how it happened. It worked. Poirot is awake and hears small thuds a second after all this monstrous noise, screams, and thuds before, and that's what wakes him up. Hubbard is crying as she stabs, like she didn't plan this for a year, and she's gonna be emotional now when she stabs. Book can lie, but I cannot, quote unquote, said by Poirot, but not when it comes to prostitutes and lying to get friends out of prison. When Hubbard pulls the Luger, or revolver, it's facing barrel left to her bottom lip by her jaw, which would go through her cheekbone and out by her ear. Probably not fatal. So even if she did shoot herself in the head to quote-unquote kill herself, it would have just shot by her ear. There's never a point where it's like actually going to her frontal lobe, brain, whatever. It's always like to the side. Because, you know, typical woman can't even do that probably. So, you know, I freeze framed the entire scene. There's not a single point where the barrel of the gun is actually in a position to do fatal harm. So you might clip a nostril and look weird, but you probably wouldn't die unless you bleed out, which probably wouldn't happen since there's 20 people around you. I like how the Countess' wife's mom, Elena, her mom tries to kill herself right in front of her, and she gets no reaction at all. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't gasp. She doesn't do anything at all. Her mom about blows her brains out, and she doesn't do anything. And that's it, I guess. So I could have done more about this. I was going to do a better high quality video on this. Just didn't have the time. Wasn't worth it. Whatever. I do feel fucking miserable. I don't know what... I'm not sick. It's just I feel like I'm about to fall and die. Wish I felt like that every day, but whatever. Can't breathe. I'm probably going to die in my sleep tonight. This would be shitty if this is my last video, since it's probably the shittiest video I've ever made in terms of quality. But, yep. Alright. Could have done more on this. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It is a bad movie when you look at it like this, but it's still a top 25-30 movie. That's saying a lot. There was truly, I've watched hundreds, if not thousands, of movies in my life. So, yes. Could have done more. I could have dove deeper in this. I could have done a hell of a lot better video. But go look at my Invitational. Go look at Series 3, or Season 3. I can do very high quality videos. Go look at all my intro videos from the beginning. There's one where it's called All Intros. That's a very high quality. So I could have done this like legit with shit in the background, music, slides, film from the movie, overlaid audio, and not this dumb shit that I'm doing now. But this is the best you're getting. So yeah, not all of this was covered here. I could really rack my brain and do more plot holes and shit. Just look it up on Google if you're so interested, even though I have ones in my brain that I've noticed that aren't even on Google because I've tried looking them up and they didn't show up, so I'm the only person who saw them, I guess. Because I have seen this movie like 30 times. So I could probably it's like I could almost do the dialogue word for word. I can do the dialogue word for word in Cuffs, Napoleon Dynamite, and Office Space. I have the entire scripts memorized because I've watched those movies so many times. Which is kind of sad, but whatever. Okay, that was it. Part 2. Uh, regularly scheduled programming coming soon. Farewell.